Chapter 5. This is all part of the same sections. This all goes to everything we've been reading since the beginning of, well, where we started today, is all part of the same section. Now, son of man, take a sharp sword. This is another visual demonstration he's supposed to be doing in front of the people. Take a sharp sword and use it as a barber's razor to shave your head and your beard. Then take a set of scales and divide up, that's measuring weights, and divide up the hair. When the days of your siege come to an end, so when he's done with his 430 days of doing everything we just got done reading him doing in chapter 4. So 430 days from now, when the days of your siege come to an end, burn a third of the hair with fire inside the city. Again, in front of the people so they could see it. Take a third and strike it with the sword all around the city. So I'm guessing he was going to take this hair and throw it up in the air and then slash a sword around it to cut it up as it fell, I guess. I don't know what else he could do with that. And scatter a third to the wind. For I will pursue them with drawn sword. But take a few strands of hair and tuck them away in the folds of your garment. Again, take a few of these and throw them into the fire and burn them up. A fire will spread from there to the whole house of Israel. So again, he's doing these things in the sight of the people. So he's cutting off his hair and his beard, and he's weighing them out. He's dividing them into 3 piles. One pile he's going to throw into the fire, burn into a fire inside the city. One pile he's going to apparently throw up into the air and then slash with the sword as it comes down. And he's going to throw one pile out to the wind. He's going to take a few of those, apparently, or take a few other strands of hair, and tuck them away in the folds of the garment, and then take those and throw them into the fire, and some of them at least, and burn them up. These hairs stand for the people who are in Jerusalem right now. Now he's not doing this in Jerusalem, he's doing this in Babylon. So he's showing the people who are already in Babylon what's going to happen to the people who are still in Jerusalem. This is what the sovereign Lord says. This is Jerusalem, which I have set in the center of the nations, with countries all around her. Israel was essentially a highway for nations to get to other places. They were on the east coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and they were basically, that land was always being fought over and used as a natural highway to get anywhere. When Egypt wanted to go anywhere into in the Levant or in the Middle East, they had to go through Israel. When anyone east of Israel wanted to go to Egypt, they had to go through Israel. When anyone came east of the Mediterranean Sea and landed and wanted to go anywhere east of the Mediterranean Sea, they had to go through Israel. And God did it on purpose. He put Israel there so they would be in the center of all the nations. He says right here he did that intentionally. Israel was supposed to be a light to the other nations, and from there God's example, the example of God's standard of living, would spread to the whole world. Later on, the church will do that. They'll start in Jerusalem and will go from there all around the world and use their infrastructure or their Roman Empire that existed at that time to do that. But even before then, Israel was supposed to be an example to the people around Israel. And because everything was around Israel, eventually the example that Israel was supposed to set for the people would spread to all the world. So this is Jerusalem. So the hair that you're throwing around and doing all this with represents Jerusalem, which I have set in the center of the nations with countries all around her. Yet in her wickedness she did not live up to God's example. In her wickedness she has rebelled against my laws and decrees more than the countries and nations around her. She has rejected my laws and has not followed my decrees. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. You have been more unruly than the nations around you, and have not followed my decrees or kept my laws. You have not even conformed to the standards of nations around you. Now, they were told many times back in the Mosaic law not to do what the nations around them did. Just as one example, in Leviticus 18, at the beginning of the chapter, it says, the Lord said to Moses, Speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live, and you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you to. Do not follow their practices. You must obey my laws and be careful to follow my decrees. I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and laws. The man who obeys them will live by them. I am the Lord. At the end of the chapter, in verse 24, it says, he gives them a whole lot of things not to do. And do not defile yourselves in any of these ways, because this is how the nations I'm going to drive out before you became defiled. Even the land was defiled. When man sins, the ground itself is affected by that. So I punished it for its sin, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But you must keep my decrees and my laws. Chapter verse 28, if you defile the land, it will vomit you out as it vomited out the nations who are before you. Verse 30, keep my requirements and do not follow any of the detestable customs that were practiced before you came. You do not defile yourselves with them. I am the Lord your God. So they were not supposed to do these things that the nations around them did. And not only did they do them, they ended up doing worse than them. They ended up not only following the nations around them, but actually going even farther than them and being even more wicked than they were. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself am against you, Jerusalem, and I will inflict punishment on you in the sight of the nations. Because of all your detestable idols, I will do to you what I have never done before, and will never do again. Therefore, in your midst, fathers will eat their children, and children will eat their fathers. That's what happens in siege time conditions. I will inflict punishment on you, and will scatter all your survivors to the winds. We read about that a lot in Jeremiah. Therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because you have defiled my sanctuary with all your vile images and detestable practices, I myself will withdraw my favor. I will not look on you with pity or spare you. I mentioned before that the tone of the book of Ezekiel is pretty harsh. God comes across as pretty harsh. Ezekiel himself comes across as pretty distant and detached. That's because this is a time of judgment and punishment. This is a time for impartial judging of sin. It's not a time for warmth and loving kindness. It's time to judge sin. A third of your people will die of the plague or perish by famine inside you. A third will fall by the sword outside your walls, and a third I will scatter to the winds and pursue with drawn sword. That's what the hair represents. Then my anger will cease, and my wrath against them will subside, and I will be avenged. And when I have spent my wrath upon them, they will know that I, the Lord, have spoken in my zeal. This whole "they will know I am the Lord" language, again, comes straight from the Levitical law. Moses says this a lot in his books in the Torah. Again, Ezekiel was a priest, so he was very, very familiar with the Torah, and it comes across in the sorts of language, the language he uses, and the sorts of words and expressions and phrases that he uses. We saw God say, "They will know that I am the Lord" a lot back in the days of Moses. And Ezekiel is invoking that language throughout his book. I will make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you, in the sight of all who pass by. You will be a reproach and a taunt, a warning and an object of horror to the nations around you, when I inflict punishment on you in anger and in wrath, and with stinging rebuke. I don't want God to ever say that to me. I don't ever want God to say he's going to make me an object of horror. Okay, it's like that is not a good place to be. If God himself is setting himself against you, if God says to you, I am against you, and I'm going to make you an object of horror, like I can't imagine anything I'd rather not hear. I'd rather hear less than that. That's about as bad as it gets. I, the Lord, have spoken. When I shoot at you with my deadly and destructive arrows of famine, I will shoot to destroy you. I'll bring more and more famine upon you, and cut off your supply of food. I will send famine and wild beasts against you, and they will leave you childless. This is all part of the covenant of blessing and cursing that we can read about at the end of Leviticus and the end of Deuteronomy. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do 1,000 years earlier. He is not; they cannot claim to be caught by surprise by this. He's given them over 900 years to be prepared for this. Plague and bloodshed will sweep through you, and I will bring the sword against you. I, the Lord, have spoken. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start a new video here.